Montauk was about finding what people with psionic abilities could do with the chair that was taken from the 1947 Roswell crash.
Okay.
They had set it up with a computer and a recording device and a space for the event horizon.
Meaning for a portal of some kind?
Yeah, it creates a portal, but where you go depends on the intentions and abilities of the person in the chair. And when I was there, I'm not sure how long they had been set up. It was the original program, not the one that everybody has been talking about. And it was all of the survivors of Langley. And they spent the first year mind fracturing us. And when they were through with, we had enough altars for them to work with. The next thing they did was take us to Montauk, boys and girls. And I was about 6 when I was taken.
Did you guys live there? Did you like have housing, stuff like that?
We were in cages in the basement. And I was there about 6 months.
Okay.
And we were treated like lab animals. We were not treated like humans at all. It was as much torture as Langley had been. And there was a warrior Draco. I understand their race is called Juriken. And they are descended from a turtle-looking race. They still have the shell on their back. They don't have wings. They're about 9 feet tall, so they're shorter than the Alpha Dracs. And this particular one was male and brown, and he would just sit in a corner and observe. And the guys that were running it, I can see their bodies in white lab coats and black slacks, but when I see their faces, it's like they're gone. So I've had memory work to erase it. And we have a lot of programming like that. I mean, actually, it's shocking that any of us remember any of it. But so I was this tiny, tiny little girl, and I was being kept in a cage and wearing white cotton pajamas, which they were hospital variety, so they tied in the back, and there was a drawstring for the pants. But I was barefoot, and my head was completely shaved. So I was very tiny for my age. They had to use a peach box, the wooden boxes the peaches came in. They had to use one of those for me to sit on in the chair for my shoulders to reach the electrodes in the chair. It has a set of 3 electrodes. 2 hit your shoulders and 1 hits your neck.
And the shoulders are they, there have been some insiders that told that some area near your shoulder blades is actually attached to that. Is that the place that they attached to it?
Well, they tied me in so that I was touching it.
Okay. And
And
what is the purpose of
it's how the chair functions.
that? Okay.
You have to touch at these points
Uh-huh.
for it to function. And it's your psionic ability, your ability to visualize the target is what the chair operates off of.
Uh-huh.
Now, at the time they were testing me, they were testing the butterfly effect, which is the theory that you can go back in time and step on a butterfly and it will change the future.
Right.
And what they found is that there are key individuals who change time, who change history.
Uh-huh.
Key individuals that you can kill off everybody else and it doesn't matter.
Oh. So the butterfly effect is actually wrong. The theory is wrong, right?
The theory is wrong. If you stepped on one of the key butterflies, it would make a difference. But
Uh-huh.
if you stepped on a normal run-of-the-mill butterfly, it wouldn't make a difference at all. In the process of all of this work, they found out that the timeline itself is sentient and resists change.
Okay.
So that's a theory that was from practical research. So that one is proven, but most people don't believe it. They think everything that you do makes a new timeline. It doesn't. It just makes a little loop in your world.
So the Draco were there experimenting together. They also wanted the research, or why were they there?
I think they wanted the research because the chair came out of a German ship. It was not an ET ship.
Oh, okay.
And it was not their technology. So they were like, where did they get this? And how does it work? And is this something we can use? So,
I'm sorry, to clarify, you say that the Roswell crash was not an ET craft there?
no,
Okay.
it was a German craft.
A German craft.
Most of the UFO interactions in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s were Germans.
Right, but
And
the 1947, there was no like Greys there on board?
there might have been a gray. I mean,
No, but you just said that
the Germans interact with more than DRACO, because I've interacted with at least a dozen ET races while I was serving with the Germans.
Right.
So
I mean the Roswell crash.
It's not just certain individual races out there. There's thousands of races out there.
But the Roswell craft, though, was it, according to your information, like a gray alien craft, or was it, or could it have been? I mean, let's talk about the Montauk chair. Could it have been that the Montauk chair was not from the Roswell crash, but from some other craft that you said that the Germans used? So basically, they worked with some race that was there.
Well, they told us it was from the Roswell crash.
Okay.
So it's possible they lied.
Yeah, it's possible that they use that for every cover for every cover story. Yeah, because the reason I'm asking is because there has been so many versions of who exactly and why and how crashed in Roswell that it's crazy. People have been talking about it's actually people from breakaway civilization that went underground, and of course we have the classic gray alien, and you have Dan Burish who talks about, I think it was he talks about the P plus 24,000 timeline, which
Mm-hmm.
the people from that time, probably timeline 2 from ours, as he calls it, came back in time and crashed in Roswell. So that's why I'm asking. Yeah, so probably that was a cover story for for your
My
years.
understanding of those people is their future is so fucked up
Yeah,
that they came back to prevent it.
sure. That's what happened basically.
But
That's
yeah,
what he said
there's
happened.
lots of people out there, but this was designed for a small adult human. This was not a
Uh-huh.
gray-sized chair.
Okay.
And I remember it as being a turquoise blue because that's the color it glowed when I was in it. But it's actually an almond color. I've seen photos. So
Okay, describe then a typical session.
they would put me in the chair on the peach box so that I would touch the electrodes.
Uh-huh.
And they would scold me, tell me I had to do what they told me to do.
Okay.
And they would give me precise directions. And I was to focus on the hole at the end. Because when they turn it on, you suddenly have the tunnel, the portal.
Uh-huh.
And it's like a stripe that comes alive and makes loops, and
Uh-huh.
it will grab you while you're in there. And you have to focus on the target or you end up in one of the loops and they can't find you.
Okay.
And they get really mad when they have to go hunt you. And that's part of what the Draco was there, what the Jurakian was there for, was to hunt us down if we got lost, because he could operate it easily. And I was tired of that shit. I'll just put it bluntly. I was tired of being tortured. I was tired of all of the crap they had done to me at Langley. I was tired of being in a cage. I was tired of being treated like an animal. And that was when they found out that I had the ability to go interdimensionally, because I would find a way out of the tunnel and go hide.
Sideways.
I was going sideways.
Okay.
And
Would you like
there,
diverge directly, go through the wall of the tunnel, or how does that?
basically I was going through the ceiling of the tunnel.
Okay. To the
And
hyperspace, so to speak.
into hyperspace, exactly.
Right.
I was hiding in hyperspace.
Where
And
would you end up? What would you see then?
what I would end up at was a place of absolute white light and friendly people.
Oh, really?
Each frequency of a timeline is its own universe
Uh-huh.
and has its own ecology. And they're different from people, but I'm telepathic and could interact with them. And the place that I ended up with the most, the people resembled what we on Earth call orcs. They had the
Wow.
pig tusks, and they wore brown clothing that was like Victorian England, and they were very, very kind to me. Because of the process, I was only half dressed. I only had the pajama bottoms whenever I arrived there. And they would bring these hand quilted blankets and put them around me.
Did they
And
know who you were?
I think by the 20th time I showed up, they did.
Oh my God. How would you pop out? I mean, how would you pop out in their world? Was there like a city, a street? What?
I would pop into their world on a specific street in a very small town.
Okay.
It was like, 1700s.
Okay. Our
It was
understanding.
it wasn't a modern place.
Right.
It was a very old-fashioned farm place,
Oh,
and I don't know what they thought I was, but they knew when the Draco came and got me, and they knew I was running away. So sometimes they would hide me, and sometimes they would just put me in a blanket and leave me in the road.
how long would you spend there at the most?
A day, two.
Oh my God. Do you eat there?
Yeah,
Wow.
they fed me better than Montauk did.
What was their
Montauk,
food
it was
like? Was it what they were like fully physical? They weren't like any
when
etheric.
you are when you are in a frequency,
Uh-huh.
it's fully
It's fully
physical.
physical, and you're physical there, and everything is the
Yeah.
same. Okay. Wow.
But whenever you go into another timeline, everything looks like a kaleidoscope.
Okay. It's like a chronovising. It's like impinging in another time, but you're not actually fully present there. You're projecting into that. Okay. I see.
Okay, a timeline is like kaleidoscope. You're not really there.
Okay.
And if you try to make sense of it, you come back crazy. But if you're in your own timeline and it's just another frequency, when you are exactly on the frequency, it's fully physical, just like here.
I see. And you could, I imagine you could somehow naturally attune to their frequency that way.
That was the psionic ability that I
Uh-huh.
had. That why they have me as a navigator in the German program is because I could do this. And this was where they discovered I could do this, was because I was running away. I wanted to get as far away from those people as I could, and I figured out that that technology would do it.
Did the orc looking people freak out the first time you appeared?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna ask that because
I,
did,
I was very different for their
sure.
world. So yeah, it was like,
So we were talking about like classic like Lord of the Rings kind of
mhm.
almost orcs, but only not evil, right? They weren't hostile.
They were not evil at all. They were not hostile. They were kind. They
Okay.
were considerate because they knew I was half naked and they were just covering me up.
Right.
And they would bring me out cups of hot soup.
And you would what?
I
Sit on
don't
the street of
made
the.
out of. I don't know what it was made out of because I was a 6-year-old child, but they would bring me out mugs
Uh-huh.
of soup and something that looked like bread, and
Jesus.
they treated me really well.
Did you, when you went there first time, did you know where you were going? Could you pick or did you see like multiple frequencies at once and you could like basically pick, or did you just go randomly? Or was it something that you most naturally gravitated to because you said you went there like 20 times? So every time you would go, you would end up there.
I think it was something that I naturally gravitated to.
Okay.
Uh, I still have telepathic
Uh-huh.
interactions with people.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know why I have a connection to those people particularly, except that I remembered them as being kind and loving and not how humans here and now would describe them. So I guess as a 6-year-old, I was judging people more how they treated me rather
Uh-huh.
than how they looked.
I see.
But um, eventually, the man that was running Montauk got really angry with me, and he had yanked me out of the chair and was going to put me into the incinerator. And the Draco warrior stopped him. He said, "I'll chip her." And the man argued with him that I was useless and useless and insubordinate and uncooperative and deserved to be killed. And
that was an American person?
That was an American. That was an American.
Okay.
And the Draco told him in English that ability to go interdimensional, and that's how he described it, was more valuable than all of the rest of his test subjects put together. And that he would chip me so that he could find me easier. So,
what was your assignment? What was your original assignment? You said you went off sort of on your own. What was the original assignment? Where should you have ended up, and what did you have to do for them?
What I was assigned to do was, there was a general store somewhere in Western America, and it was in the 1880s. And I was supposed to go to this general store and take an apple from a display basket and bring it back and not eat it.
That's the butterfly test, right?
That was the butterfly test.
Okay.
You see what would happen by taking an apple. And someone else was supposed to take it back. And I was this head-shaved little girl in white cotton pajama pants from the hospital. And so if I had been seen, it would have made an effect. And so I wasn't supposed to be seen. I was not supposed to be caught being a thief. And eventually, after I was chipped, I actually went and did it. And at that point, they sent me back to Langley. So
you spent 6 months there, and that's all you did, basically? Were you guys rotated? Like, this day, for example, today you go and the next day someone else, or how was it? Okay.
Yeah, there were, in the car where we went, there were 4 of us kids that were taking that trip. And we were kept in separate cages in the basement, mostly in the dark. So we had no idea what day it was or how long we were there. But I mean,
what was the
6
reason
months
for treating you like this? Was this part of the programming of, like, like sort of suppressing your whole, being, your will, everything, the awareness of where you are, who you are? Okay. They
wanted to keep us completely off kilter. It was brainwashing. They had spent time creating 2,200 altars in me. And they had not yet 2,200 altars. They were so cruel to us that 80% of the kids gave up and went catatonic and were killed. And these were kids. I was one of the youngest. I was 4 when they took me. So you've got kids from 4 to 6 years old in the first year, and they killed 80% of us because we gave up. You create an altar because that child's mind decides they're going to survive.
Right.
And they kept going until 80% of the kids gave up. Now, I understand that in the 1980s that they changed the way that they processed the kids because the powers that be decided that they were losing too many of us. So from 1959, when they took me, until 1980, they were still killing 80% of us.
Disappearing, basically. The kids were disappearing.
Yeah. As far as their parents were concerned, the kids were disappearing. But it was the CIA was killing us because we had stopped cooperating. Okay, the people that they take are Native American, Sephardi Jewish, the ones from the Middle East, not the Khazars. They take people who are descended from the Scythian tribes, and those have scattered all over. They take people from countries that were not Catholic because the Catholics were killing them off. So there aren't that many left. They have certain bloodlines that they've been tracking since they started digitizing the records. And these bloodlines are actually scattered all over the world. Okay, what they are aiming for first off is Rh negatives, because there's something about the Rh negative that intensifies whatever ability they would have had anyway. And then in addition to those, they are taking O positives. So this is what they're looking for, is those blood types. It can be A, B, or O if it's a negative, or O positive.
Okay.
That's what they're looking for. Rh negative is an ET line, depending on which blood type, which ET. A negative is DRACO. O negative is what we call Anunnaki. They call themselves Jahami. And the B negative is Zeta Grays. And yeah, they all have what we call natural hybrids. All humans on Earth are hybridized. We all have a reptilian brain. We all have stages of life where we have gills. Before we're born, we're all hybrids. So picking out one set of hybrids and demonizing them is a little bit silly. And whenever you look at humanity, their genus Homo is just that, a genus. If you look through the fossil record, there have been at least 20 different species of genus Homo. And we all had certain things in common. We had a bigger brain. We had the capability of speech. We could use tools. We have hands with opposable thumbs. We have feet instead of a set of hands to climb trees. I think some of them still had a tail, but it was very short. But there are still some humans, Homo sapien, that are born with tails. So that's not completely out of the question.
Okay, so the Montauk missions, did you guys ever go together on a mission?
I didn't.
You didn't, okay.
I didn't. They considered me to be untrustworthy.
Right.
because I kept running away.
I see. And so once they've proved that the butterfly theory is not working, do you remember anything that came out of it afterwards?
When I was on Mars, there was discussion about what the Americans were doing with the timeline, and that It was interfering with things that we were doing because their activities had come to the attention of the time police.
Mhm.
The galaxy has, it's not in English, so this isn't the official name, but they have a galactic authority,
Mhm.
which is a combination of judicial system and police, and they don't really have prisons. If you're guilty, they just execute you. And there's a set of laws for anything that would cause issues. And these were hammered out millions of years ago. And the whole galaxy has been following them, except Earth humans. And everybody else is actually pretty good about following them. And there's a set of laws that has to do with time travel, what you're allowed to do and what you're not. And we were told that the Americans, and by that I am pretty sure they meant the Montauk Project, were using time travel to give themselves more power. And they were changing history to give themselves more money and more prestige and more control. And that this had come to the attention of the time police or the time corps, and that they were getting in trouble for it, and that because they were doing it, that the Germans were getting in trouble for a procedure that we called redialing
Mhm.
or
Or
rephoning.
the anti-telephone that Tony Rodriguez mentioned. Yeah.
What we would do is we would go through, and if there was a major disaster, we would go through and rescue people.
Mhm.
And we were getting in trouble for that because of what Montauk was doing.
Okay.
And so there was some sort of an arrangement worked out between the Germans and the Time Corps.
Mhm.
So we had specific parameters where we were allowed to do some things and not others.
The Americans that were running this, the CIA, as vicious and as cruel as they were, who do you think they really are? I mean, what are they descendants from? What secret society, if you will, or what genetic line or soul group? Where did they come from? These people, who are they specifically?
As far as I know, these people are a subgroup of the current elites.
Mhm.
And they are people who genocided the prior elites.
And the prior elites.
The prior elites were hybrids of the Jahami,
I
the
see. The
Anunnaki.
Anunnaki. Okay.
And the current elites are said to be hybrids of the DRACO.
Okay.
Now, there was a lot of interbreeding between the two groups. So I think what we've got is a second level hybrid that is actually Draco and Jahami,
Uh-huh.
and very little human. And they're not fossils, they're current skulls, but they're like the skulls that they found in South
In
America.
Caracas.
The ones,
Yeah.
yeah, the ones that they're calling Homo capensis.
Uh-huh. So
Those are,
those would be the Anunnaki lines, right? Elite
That would
units.
be a cross between the Anunnaki and
I
the
see.
Draco hybrids.
Oh, okay.
So you've got a subgroup. And because they're incredibly intelligent and have incredible psionic abilities, most of the rest of us are at an extreme disadvantage. We also don't know exactly how long they live
Did you
because
see did you see any people with elongated skulls on any of these projects?
no,
No, okay.
I did not. I saw regular, normal
Mm-hmm.
appearing humans. Um, but the people who are running the CIA or were when I was at Langley were normal appearing humans. Some were Americans, some were
Mm-hmm.
Germans,
Mm-hmm.
but they had the average human intelligence is defined at being 100, and these people were close to 200.
Mm-hmm.
They were incredibly smart and had no compassion at all. None. I've been treated better by Draco than I ever was by those people. They they enjoyed torturing small children. They enjoyed their job.
Okay.
This was something that they deeply enjoyed. It was like this was their dream job, was
Okay.
to get to torture small children.
Right. So they weren't having any qualms about it, meaning we have to do this because this is, the operational procedure. It's painful, but that's what we do. That wasn't like that. They were more like a sociopaths, enjoying what they were
Mhm.
doing. Okay.
It was like we were not even the same species they were.
Mm-hmm.
They were going in, they were torturing us. Um, they had no qualms about it whatsoever. When one of us got to where we would sit in the corner and rock and scream, they would just toss us into the incinerator. And I watched that happen more than once.
Okay.
I watched them come into a group of us in the cafeteria where we were supposed to be quietly eating, and they would just shoot somebody. And that somebody would wake up in the regen tank, and the next day they would be back with us. It was a constant time of you never knew what was going to happen to you. You had no control over your life. You had no idea about time. You had no anything. And there weren't any mirrors. You didn't have to brush your hair because they
Right.
kept your head
Right.
shaved. And the room I was in at Langley was about the size of a closet. It was
Mm-hmm.
just big enough for a cot and a toilet and a sink. It was not even as large as a cell in a prison. An adult would not have been able to lie down in it. So everything was white. There was no color. The walls were white, the floors were white,
Yeah.
our pajamas were white. There was no color. There was no anything. It was simply, we were there. We were there to be mind fractured. We were there to be tortured. And they enjoyed it. Now, there were some ETs among them. After I came back from Langley, when they were in the process of programming my altars, there was a Naga, a large, she was black on her back and white on her belly, and she had huge sapphire blue eyes. And she wore a lab coat like the rest of the doctors, and she spoke to me telepathically and told me that it was eventually going to be okay. And that was the only kindness I was ever shown at Langley.
Yeah.
And it wasn't by a human. It was by a reptilian.
Yeah.
So when I hear normals talking about reptilians like they're demons, I just figure they have no clue how evil humans can actually be without any help at all from anything supernatural.
Yeah. I guess the people will have the question of if these people were, as you said, crossbred with the reptilians. I mean, the American, the CIA side. I guess what we didn't mention is that they would probably be the Jesuits who were posing as Catholics. Weren't they?
So there are several groups
Right.
that are affiliated with the CIA.
The CIA, yeah.
One is the Bavarian Illuminati,
Mm-hmm.
and they are Draco hybrid.
Okay.
Another is the Jesuits from the Vatican, and they say there are 3 popes. The white pope is the one that the world sees, and the black pope is the head of the Jesuits, and the gray pope is the head of the 13 families that came from Italy. The de Medici is one of them.
Okay.
And so we're talking that far back in history.
I see.
Most of those were Lombards. That was their tribe.
Right. So I guess the people will ask the question then. You have the story of the Germans siding, basically making a deal with the Draco, but they got screwed over like several times at least. I mean, you have all these stories about having to sacrifice their people for a deal of technology and all that. But yet you have them working side by side with the Draco, and then you have the American side, which is, as you said, the people were more cruel than anyone, who are also working with the Draco. And the Draco is what? Just getting any deal they can and manipulating everybody, or because when you say that because they're basically they have no principle in that, because they don't. When you said that they have honor, they don't see us as someone as somebody that deserves that. So that's why they just toss us around like chess pieces. Is that it?
They see us as having no honor because we don't keep our side of the bargain. Part of the reason we don't keep our side of the bargain is the majority of the people don't know there was a bargain.
Okay.
And so the next people who come into power come in thinking they have this clean slate, and they don't.
Right.
So we live in a part of space that is part of the Draco Empire. That is like waking up and you are in the middle of Soviet Russia. No matter what you do, you deal with the guy in charge.
Yep.
No matter what. That's the situation Earth is in. No matter what else we do, we deal with the Draco Queen. Period. That's the way it is. We're in her territory. She owns us.
So that's their view, right? So
now,
is that said?
That is their view.
Right. So they see us as our territory. They don't care about the population that much, as long as the elites pay the tribute. Is what you're saying?
As long as the elites pay the tribute, they don't care what we do.
Okay.
And the elites' problem. And they do know that almost all of our religions consider them demons, and so they don't show up on a regular rule. If the elites pay their tribute on time, There's no problem. Now, when the Germans got tired of being attacked by the Jesuits, they went into space. And they found out that every square inch of this solar system already belonged to someone else. Seriously, they set out property rights long ago. So the only way they could get off Earth was to make a deal with somebody.
I see.
And the only people that were, and people I use loosely, the only people who were willing to give them a sublease were the DRACO.
Do you see this DRACO situation? Because, you know, you probably know what, you know, people like Randy Kramer are talking about, you know, the DRACO not being the problem anymore. And, you know, I have your perspective now. So do you see this situation resolving anytime soon with the DRACO? Is there like a sort of handing over of the authority going on or something right now?
What we have right now is because Baphomet is executed of the elite in crisis. And they're in chaos because their rituals are not working. They're not getting what they want because Baphomet's gone.
And what were they getting?
What they were getting was power. They were getting personal monies. They were getting success. They were getting their kids in power. He was hands-on manipulating who got what.
I see.
And he's gone. So now they're not getting what they think they're supposed to get.
But
and so
aren't they in alliance with the rest of the DRACO or not? Is it not the same? Okay.
No, they thought he was a god.
Okay.
From their point of view, their god is dead. What would how many billion Christians on this planet do if they actually understood in real terms that God was dead? This is the position that the elite are in. Their God is dead, not coming back. And everything that they have done for thousands of years is no longer working. They are actually having to deal with humans to get what they want. Now what we're having is their pedophilia is being exposed, their raping women is being exposed, their corruption is being exposed, all of their dirty little deals are being exposed. We are in a position where normal humans can finally demand justice because they no longer have that Baphomet covering for these guys.
But you just said that the DRACO still consider us their territory, so who's paying them then if they're not? Like, can they provide the same for the elites and just be fine?
They could if they wanted to.
But they don't want to.
They don't care. They don't care. They're not adrenochrome addicts. Okay. They don't want that. I mean,
so who's paying?
From their point
who's paying the tribute to them now? I mean, the DRACO.
The governments still are. The elites are. The governments are still taxing people, and a percentage of it goes to them.
Okay.
Why do you think that the American government has, what is it, at least $9 trillion that's disappeared? So where do you think that money's going? Well, Randy Kramer talks about that we're exporting beer and children's clothing.
Right.
You know, the Germans are exporting cyborgs and just flat out slaves. So, you know, the taxes are getting paid.
Okay.
But the question comes down to, When are the normals going to say, enough, we're not going to deal with the corruption anymore? You can't keep doing this. And at some point, the normals have to understand we are a subject planet to the DRACO. And no matter who's saying it, they're still here.
Mm-hmm.
They're still as here as they have been in the last 5,000 years. And they're not going away. They own us. There's no reason for them to leave. They just laugh at those idiots on TV saying that, oh yeah, they're dumped out of the solar system. No, they're not. They're still here.
Okay, let's end on
I
this one.
listen to some of these people and I'm like, oh my God, how stupid are they? Now, what kind of arrogant nonsense do they expect people to believe? You've got an empire that is half the Sagittarius arm of the galaxy, and you think you're going to stand nose to nose, well, nose to kneecap with one of them and tell them to leave, and they're gonna? Get real.